Hello, and welcome to the So Sidious podcast, where we travel from a galaxy far, far away, from Asgard into Atlantis and wherever fandom may take us. Here we discuss anything nerd culture, whether it's the comics, novels, movies, TVs, any of our favorite properties. I'm Jeremy Darr. Here with me is David Cochran, and we are going to be discussing the new Star Wars novel Brotherhood. This is part 2. This is the second half of the book. It's something that was pretty exciting when it came out. Dave and I, we read it. It's not super exciting. The first half was mediocre, not terrible, just seemed pointless, I guess. You agree?
Yeah. The first half, it wasn't anything too crazy. So yeah, we covered like the first 30 chapters, I believe, in our part 1 episode of this. And yeah, our kind of consensus coming out of it was that it didn't really feel worth being written at that point. There wasn't really a lot of stuff that really had a lot of weight to it or anything where it was like, okay, I see why they wrote this. I see where they're going with this. It's just kind of like, okay, well, hopefully something happens soon. So I think the second half definitely picked up more so than the first half. But yeah, overall, our thoughts on it was kind of like, all right, I'm not sure where they're going with this.
So yeah, I totally agree. The second half was a lot more fun to read, at least. So, we finished with a bang, kind of. There was a lot of cool aspects to the second half of the book, things that related to canon, things that built on the story. There was other things that seemed pointless. I think we got another sand line.
Oh, we did. I've got that marked. Don't you worry.
Yeah.
They give the people what they want, bro. We got some more references to sand.
They can't drop
it. Yeah,
That's
it's never going away, just like Palpatine.
At this point, it's just entertaining. I actually enjoy it.
Oh, yeah, I was laughing my ass off when the line dropped, dude. Yeah, we didn't land on like a specific chapter number when we wrapped up part 1, but I was listening recently, and the consensus kind of thing was we left off on the event that Anakin was finally going to Cato Neimoidia. So Obi-Wan was kind of about to stand trial for these bombings that happened in Cato Neimoidia that they kind of started to blame on the Republic. Some evidence was coming out, but we hadn't really seen all of it. And Anakin had decided he'd go to Cato Neimoidia to save Obi-Wan, and he brought along a Jedi Padawan named Mil Alabeth with him. So that was kind of the last things we touched on during our part 1 episode. And that's roughly chapter 29, chapter 30-ish.
Yeah. So, the first half of the book, where we ended to start part 1 of the podcast, it was actually like, oh, okay, there's something to look forward to for the second half of the book.
Yeah.
The character Mil is actually pretty cool. One of the cool things they said about her was that Mil and Anakin learning to care for Mil kind of gave him a maturity and a sense of, like a fatherly figure, which led to him eventually becoming a master to Ahsoka, Right. And then Obi-Wan kind of saw this through Anakin, and it was the first time the audience or Obi-Wan noticed that he might actually be a good master to a Padawan.
Yeah, it did do a good job at showing that development. And now, obviously, we see this a lot as well in Clone Wars when we see Anakin being a master, like you said, to Ahsoka. Now, I don't understand. I'm still unsure as to where Ahsoka comes into play with all this. We have very limited time between the end of this book and the start of Revenge of the Sith. Ahsoka's gone completely by the time Revenge of the Sith starts. She's not even mentioned yet at the end of this book. So it almost feels like they're not counting her as canon unless it's Clone Wars, and they're doing a show of her, obviously. But I'm just super confused at where she comes into play with Anakin's timeline.
Well, yeah, they could have easily slipped her into this book, at least mentioned her, or it could have been a really special chapter or something where he actually meets Ahsoka.
Yeah, something, because, I don't know. It's a little confusing.
It seemed like a missed opportunity. I was actually looking forward to that. I thought it would come, but not a big deal.
Yeah.
Another thing they built on early on in the second half of the book is the weird little feud between Windu and Anakin. Just a little bit.
No, they do.
Like he wouldn't reveal Obi-Wan's location or something like that. Like he always shows that he doesn't trust Anakin.
Yeah, makes little side comments and kind of stuff. And then when Anakin's going to Cato Neimoidia, he calls and basically Anakin sees caller ID. It's Mace Windu. And he answers and acts like he's got bad service essentially, and they're breaking up, and he hangs up on him, does the classic kind of thing because he doesn't want to know he's going to Cato Neimoidia with a youngling.
Right. So they kind of build on that stuff. Another cool thing they built on was they mentioned the contrast between Anakin and Obi-Wan's personalities.
Yes.
And the cool thing about that is they mentioned that Qui-Gon might have been aware of that. Like he thought that they matched each other well. It was a perfect contrast to kind of bring balance to each other. Like Obi-Wan is the control, Anakin is like the bravado. You know what I mean? Like Obi-Wan's the intellect, Anakin is the emotion. They explained it as ice and fire.
Mm-hmm.
I thought that was a really cool way to a little insight into their relationship.
Yeah, so that was one of my favorite parts of this book, honestly. And there were a few different times. I think one was an Anakin chapter where Anakin was kind of, thinking about it. And a couple of them were Obi-Wan chapters where Obi-Wan was thinking about it. But yeah, that happened in the early chapters too. I think it was like chapter 34. But Obi-Wan starts recalling that even though Anakin and him are always arguing before missions, they're always snapping back and forth. As soon as they get into the thick of it, they work together in perfect synchronization. Like you said, it's like a yin and yang thing. And Obi-Wan says it was almost like their verbal jousting was needed to achieve the highest level of combined combat. He says that even when Anakin was a child, they somehow synced in their movements. And he said, despite their age difference or rank or personality difference, they always got the job done no matter what. It's just like, yeah, dude, best Jedi duo ever, man. Like that's why it was my favorite part of this book, is because the way they described how perfect their relationship worked. It was just like, okay, yeah, man, wish we could have gotten them for more.
Yeah, and if you think about it, without Anakin's kind of defiant personality, he might not have ever gone to Cato Neimoidia to save Obi-Wan.
Mm-hmm. Totally, he wouldn't have, I would imagine, yeah. But so he heads on over there, and yeah, I just wanted to throw the sand line. That was like almost immediately at the start of this. They're flying over to Cato Neimoidia, and he turns the transmission off, and he noticed some Langston's blue sand was still stuck between his gloves. And the exact line was, "Sand. It got everywhere."
It gets everywhere.
just like, oh my goodness. Keep it coming, I guess. Keep it coming.
Yeah, I don't think we've ever seen Anakin hate anything more than sand.
No, I don't. And he's hated some things throughout this saga, but sand's at the top.
Hateful character.
Yeah.
Okay, so another cool thing was Assaj. What stood out to you about our first canon meeting of Assaj Ventress?
Yeah, so that's what I was like trying to contemplate the whole time I was reading this. I was like, okay, is this the first time in the timeline that Assaj just kind of popped up? And it was definitely the first time they ran into her. They didn't really know who she was. But I thought she was good. I mean, she wasn't in it much, but all the time she was, I thought it was perfect to Assaj. I don't know. I always enjoy scenes with Assaj because she's, it's got that spicy wit. She's always talking trash, but she kind of tells the truth almost kind of as it is, like about how hypocritical the Jedi were, and how that was a main point in this book too, a common theme about how the Jedi were no longer peacekeepers, and all of a sudden they're soldiers in a war. And Ventress used that as one of her main kind of drives about why she does not trust the Jedi and why she will not trust the Jedi, because they're hypocrites. And it's like, yeah, I mean, she ain't wrong really here. So I like her character. It's really fleshed out. It's not a mustache twirling villain. It's a complex character.
Yeah, totally agree. She made a cool point during the book about the evidence to who bombed Cato Neimoidia. The evidence was pointing to both sides, Republic, separatists. And she mentioned that somebody must be playing both sides, which we already know is Darth Sidious is playing both sides the whole time.
Yep.
And then Obi-Wan says at some point, it's like the last meeting with Ventress in the book, he says, I think we're going to see more of her. You're just like,
yeah.
Yes, you are.
Yeah. No, we got a lot of nods kind of like that. Like you said, she nodded to the somebody was playing both sides thing with Palpatine. And then we it at one point, Obi-Wan recounted back the Attack of the Clone scene, his interaction with Dooku on Geonosis, where he realizes the dark side had clouded the Jedi vision, and a single Sith Lord holding such sway over 10,000 strong of Jedi, with such an intertwined relationship with the Force and no hit whatsoever of the Sith detected by the Jedi. And, you know, they were saying such a disturbance with the flow of life like that would be obvious. And Dooku is even telling them about it, but that's how powerful Palpatine was and how powerful that sway was over everything. But yeah, it was just another kind of hint at the deception and the empire Sidious was already building at that point.
So how did you feel about the trial, Obi-Wan's trial?
The trial itself was fine. So yeah, they basically, Obi-Wan got a bunch of stuff found on him that he wasn't supposed to have. And then the evidence about the Republic being behind it came forward, and the little clip of somebody telling Obi-Wan, yeah, okay, evidence does not look good for the Republic. So basically Obi-Wan's like pleading to get more time to investigate this thing, because he's like, look, there's more to it than just that. I need more time. I wasn't trying to hide it. I just need more time before everybody freaks out and immediately blames the Republic. So as always, Obi-Wan speaks really well. He's really, well-spoken character and everything, but I mean, you knew it was rigged against him. So I get confused with the timeline in the book with it, but obviously by the end of the trial, Anakin is there and he ends up jumping down and interfering in whatever's going on. Obi-Wan's being attacked. The whole trial itself, honestly, it's kind of a blur in between the middle. I know how it started, Obi-Wan, protesting everything, and I know how it ended with Anakin jumping down. It wasn't bad.
Remember, like, at some random point, all the guards were poisoned or something, and then they started dropping, and Obi-Wan was blamed, and hell kind of broke loose at that point.
Oh my gosh.
Yeah.
Doesn't even ring a bell.
That's funny about books. Sometimes you'll just, especially in audiobooks, you could zone out for a few paragraphs and then it's like,
true.
It's,
yeah, but yeah, this was an audiobook reading or listening, but yeah, that's a good point.
One cool creative thing I had with that moment was the chapter that explained his trial with the guards dropping and all that stuff. It explained all of that. And then the next chapter was from Rug's perspective. And she's actually watching this trial from a scope. So all the events that you saw take place at Obi-Wan's trial, you kind of saw it again through her perspective, because she's on the rooftops watching this and she sees the guards falling. She sees hell break loose and she has her sniper. She takes a shot. And again, I don't even know what side Rug is on, but the cool thing is seeing it from a different perspective, the events we just saw. But then the chapter after that, when you get back into the action with Obi-Wan, the previous chapter ended with her taking a shot with her sniper, and the next chapter started with Obi-Wan fighting and a bullet flying right by his head, or a laser, or whatever's in this Star Wars universe. So it was like a perfect transition to the next chapter where Obi-Wan's just back into the fight.
Yeah, so I think that's another reason why I kind of got where the trial got a little muddled in my mind, because like you said, we watched it from multiple points of view, and then we also watched it from Anakin's point of view when he was watching like the broadcast of it. But yeah, that was a really cool transitioning, and they continue to do that because that happens in one of the end chapters when Kita or whatever has Obi-Wan with the bomb and everything, and then the chapter ends with some loud noise, and the next chapter starts with Rook firing a sniper shot and hitting Kita or whatever. So yeah, it's a really cool way to switch the narrative but still keep the flow smooth and continuing.
Yeah. And dude, the first half of the book was super cloudy for me. Like, I probably remember 4 or 5 key points for like 30 chapters.
Yeah,
it's tough sometimes.
Yeah, there just wasn't a lot of stuff that grabbed you. Yeah, so something that was cool. So we ended the first part under the impression that Mill had force heal, basically, as her ability, because she healed some person in a hospital bed or something like that. We get more info into that as Anakin and Mill are walking around in Cato Neimoidia. She actually senses pain. She senses emotion and pain. And they describe the way she senses it as like thermal vision, basically. Like the pain and emotion in people, it's like seeing them light up red on a thermal scope. And what she's able to do is ease people from that pain. And so that's what she did to that person in the hospital bed. It looked like force heal, but she has the ability to like ease and take away pain from people in like balance emotion, essentially, which, holy crap, she's like 10. So the fact that she's doing this, like, that could be such a cool Jedi story down the road if she survived the purge. Because, like, I don't know, that was super interesting. The way they were describing her, like, she's like almost doubling over in pain because she's sensing so much pain from an infirmary there nearby, and she's trying to focus it and harness this ability. And it was just really unique, cool, kind of first time Force ability I've seen before. I thought it was done really well.
Great point. I wonder if she got taken out with the purge, you know?
Right.
I mean, we haven't seen her in any other book, comic, movie, show. So, and she seems super significant, but her fate doesn't seem too bright.
No, not a lot of them were.
Yeah. So after the trial, we get the first meeting of Ventress and Anakin. We covered that a little bit. Super interesting. It's just a cool point to keep us in the book, like another character in canon that is interesting that we already know and love.
Mm-hmm.
So, yeah, I mean, I guess Anakin saves him and they get out of Cato Neimoidia. And that's where Anakin saves him. So he mentions it in Revenge of the Sith. So that is the story behind Cato Neimoidia.
Yeah, dude, that was so, like, yeah, so it's a line from Revenge of the Sith, as we talked about. Obi-Wan in this book says the reason why it didn't count was because he already had a plan to get out, and Anakin interrupted it by jumping down in the middle of the trial and whatever. But so I'm not so sure if that was worth writing an entire book about, because like it wasn't even like notable at all. The story, the explanation, anything. It was like, okay, Anakin came and saved Obi-Wan, but Obi-Wan says he was going to be fine already.
Yeah, it almost seems like it would have fit perfect in one single episode in the Clone Wars series.
Totally. Exactly. Like you said in the first part, like it should have just been a Clone Wars episode and it would have been pretty cool.
Yeah.
I would have watched, but I don't know.
Yeah, 30-minute episode instead of a 10-hour book, you know?
Yeah. But yeah, so during the action scenes, basically this whole thing wraps up with them escaping the trial, like you said, and their Cato Neimoidians are firing at them, yada, yada, yada. And then at one point, Obi-Wan has to fight Rook. Rook's on his side, but she's like, it has to look real. I have to fight you. Like, you're going to escape, but I have to at least put up a fight. So they have like kind of a fake fight that starts. And it's kind of cool. The chapter ends with it describing Obi-Wan going into his classic Obi-Wan lightsaber pose. And then what was the music? The music from the March on the Jedi Temple kicks in as it's describing Obi-Wan going into his classic Obi-Wan lightsaber pose. I was like, all right, that's dope. And we also get this really cool stuff. We've gotten in a few different Star Wars novels, Star Wars audiobooks, but they do a really cool job at explaining how the Force works in combat. So they did it with Anakin in another book, and they're doing it a lot with Obi-Wan in this one, but they're basically explaining how time is slowed down completely for them when, you know, blaster bolts are flying at them and it's like it's coming at 1/10 of a speed. So it's describing them deflecting blaster shot after blaster shot, force pushing people, doing all this, but they do it in a way where it's like, okay, all of that happened in like 2 seconds. But it's really cool how they explain how the Force works for that, and basically is like a quick time kind of slow down skill they have.
Yeah, and that makes sense when they're literally deflecting blaster bolts with their lightsabers, you know?
Yeah. So there's one of my favorite parts during this. Rook's giving them cover fire from above. Right before it happens, actually, Obi-Wan and Anakin are on the ground, and Obi-Wan puts his hand on Anakin's shoulder, and he says, "I'm genuinely happy that you're here with me." It's like, there was a lot of cool, like, you know, touching moments between Anakin and Obi-Wan. But when that's happening, Rook is overlooking, giving them cover fire. And it's the first time she's ever seen Jedi in action. So she's seeing them first time in action, and she's just in awe. She's never seen them, you know, the way they move, how quick they move, the synchronization between Anakin and Obi-Wan. And she's just in awe until she realizes something. And she stops and looks and goes, Are they laughing? So while they're being fired down and stuff, she's looking, and Obi-Wan and Anakin are laughing while they're probably talking trash while just absolutely making light work of these enemies. But it just made them look pretty damn cool.
Yeah, and you make a good point about their relationship, because if I remember correctly, the Attack of the Clones relationship with Obi-Wan and Anakin seemed to be kind of annoying. Like Obi-Wan was being a little too micromanaging throughout the whole movie, right?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, and then in the Clone Wars series, it seems like they were more of a collaborating group, like they each had a voice instead of just Obi-Wan. And same with Revenge of the Sith, it was, more of that feel instead of just Obi-Wan teaching him kind of a bit much, you know what I mean?
Yeah. You definitely like to see the actual touching moments between them. Like you said, Attack of the Clones kind of got annoying because they were just always like, Anakin was always bitching about Obi-Wan being unfair and he doesn't understand. He doesn't listen. And Obi-Wan was kind of, every single time just like, yeah, you did that one wrong, Padawan. Well, you didn't, you're dumb. Like just kind of stuff where it's like, all right, dude, good Lord, you both are obnoxious right now.
He'd always be like, Anakin, you have to control your emotions, Anakin. And Anakin, it was always an Anakin sandwich with his name. It would always end and begin with it was just a lot.
Anakin sandwich. Yeah.
A little excessive. But this seems to be the beginning of a more even relationship. So that was cool to see.
Yeah. And they kind of made fact, because this was the first time we see Anakin promoted. He's not a Padawan to Obi-Wan anymore. So there's a few times they mention like the kind of change in the dynamic now because Anakin's no longer the Padawan. And at one point when they're fighting together, Obi-Wan realizes that the comments made between them used to be filled with condescension and bitterness, but now that Anakin's rank had changed, it had kind of turned into almost a competitive, friendly banter, where they're both kind of enjoying it rather than, again, like we said in Attack of the Clones, it's banter because he's whining and the other one's lecturing. So yeah, the whole change in rank, they did a really good job at explaining how that changed the dynamic in their relationship.
Yeah, and that makes sense. Myself and David, both military. I was Navy, Dave was Air Force. So we understand the ranking system. So when we first started, people were probably hard on us. And if we were their same rank, they wouldn't have been that way. You know what I mean?
Oh, yeah, it totally changes. I mean, if you don't have a patch on, or even if you're just, E1, whatever the case is, no matter how much they're going to tell you when you're going in, we're about respect no matter, what rank, yada, 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 yada. It's like, no, you don't have any respect at that point. Like, you got to accept that you're just going to wear some shit for a while.
100%. It's all about the ranks. That's how you get respect.
Yeah, and you can't be Anakin and be whining the whole time.
100%, dude. If you acted like Anakin, bad things would happen.
Yeah.
Speaking of promotions, it was super cool when Palpatine, there's actually a lot to unpack here because Palpatine gives some kind of official speech about the official integration of the Jedi Order into the Grand Army of the Republic.
Yep.
And that's where you finally get the reasoning, like in the Clone Wars series, Obi-Wan and Anakin, they're called General. You know what I mean? And we didn't see that until Clone Wars. This explained that. Like they're literally an official part of the Grand Army now.
Yep.
So it's wild. And that it's such an extremist kind of situation, like just a bold move. And it totally laid the groundwork for the Empire being born from the Republic. You know what I mean?
Yeah. And when Palpatine makes that announcement, Anakin has a good response to it. He thinks it's good. Everybody in the crowd seems to be like down with this, and Obi-Wan's like, am I the only one questioning this? Like,
yes,
kind of not good with it. He's like, I don't know how I feel about this. And while they're returning to Coruscant, Anakin and Padme, which by the way, Anakin immediately calls out to Padme for help to get back, and at this point Obi-Wan makes a comment of, oh, something's going on between them. Obi-Wan finally realizes that there's a relationship there between Anakin and Padme, because he's like, why does he keep reaching out to Padme? Oh my gosh, all this time. But they're returning back, and Padme says they need to report to the Chancellor. And Obi-Wan, without even thinking, questions this out loud. And he kind of says that he kind of slipped up, but because he didn't really feel super comfortable bringing it to him. And Anakin immediately jumped in, defended the Chancellor. Padme defended him as well, said, I trust him. He's a good man, yada, yada. And when Obi-Wan takes the news to the Jedi Council, Mace and Yoda both have the same reactions as Anakin and Padme. And it's like Obi-Wan was the only one who was kind of suspicious and not fully trusting in the Chancellor at this point.
I love that, dude. His apprehension about that integration is perfect. It's perfect for his character. That was a really cool moment.
Yes. They did add some good stuff for Obi-Wan's character in this book. There were, even with just like small portions, tiny portions of this book, stuff like that. It was like, all right, so he was on to something, you know. He wasn't completely blinded, and he was already seeing the faults and seeing that the Sith was active and it did happen underneath their nose, kind of stuff. And yeah, they did Obi-Wan good in this.
Totally. It's like, this is the groundwork for the ultimate villain, the Empire. And it's like, if everyone in the book bought into it, that would be fine. But it's much more special that you had one of our heroes just completely question the situation. So you got that other side, because the audience knows it's bad news. And Obi-Wan is kind of, in our perspective, like, he obviously doesn't know what's going to happen in the future, but he could feel something's wrong.
Totally. One quick thing I wanted to touch on that we kind of skipped over. So Anakin and Ventress have a duel right before, when they're trying to escape Cato Neimoidia. Ventress cuts Anakin and Mill off, and they have this duel. It's pretty dope. It kind of goes into the detail about Anakin figuring out the strength and touch of his robotic hand. You know, lightsaber duels are a very touchy thing, very graceful finesse. And he's got a robot hand, so he's dealing with like figuring out the balance between his real hand, his robot hand. The images described the two red blades igniting in the dark, and, you know, Anakin realizing weapons of the Sith. It was super cool. And then it was really cool. So the duel is pretty even throughout the whole thing until Ventress starts to threaten the youngling. She sees the youngling and she starts threatening her, kind of telling Anakin, you know, she's going to take her and whatever the case is. And Anakin's defensive side just kicks in. Big time mistake by Ventress there. And all of a sudden, it's like everything clicked for him. His hand was in perfect rhythm with his real hand. It was no longer an issue, and he just became one and turned the tide of the battle instantly as soon as she started threatening Mill. So it was like, okay, you know, really cool demonstration of Anakin's mentality going into that.
Totally. That's about it I have for the book. Do you have anything else? Any other points?
No, the book itself, no. I mean, overall... Well, and just the epilogue at the very end, Anakin and Obi-Wan, they go back to Cato Neimoidia and basically break Rook out of prison. And this was the last time it talked about the synchronized dance, talking about their fighting styles together. And it was just a synchronized dance between two opposites, two ends of an infinite tether, one a blunt instrument attacking with a frightening speed and power, and the other a graceful dance of precise violence. Where one moved, the other complemented. Where one attacked, the other defended. Where one swept, the other struck. Brother in arms of the Jedi Order, and together they were unstoppable. And even though the entire book was so pretty much mid up until that point, that ending with John Williams' orchestra kicking in, it was like in that 10-second moment right there, it was like, oh my gosh, okay, it was worth it. That was dope. Like, love that description of Anakin and Obi-Wan at the end there, the music kicking in, like, perfect way to end the book itself was right there. I was hyped listening to that. But overall, yeah, pretty mid novel.
Yeah. The second half made it a lot better. I probably would have put it at like a 5 out of 10 for the first half. Now, after the whole thing's concluded, I'd put it at a 7.5. I mean, 7 out of 10, sorry. It's fine. I mean, maybe even like a
7 out of 10 total?
6.8. You know, it's like, I don't want to read it again. I'm not going to read it again, but it had its moments. So I don't regret reading it. You know, it was fine.
Yeah, I'd say 6.9 probably. 6.9 out of 10 for it. I don't regret reading it, but yeah, I wouldn't suggest it.
There was a lot of good moments, but not to justify a full book.
No. Yeah. Yeah, I love all the little Anakin and Obi-Wan tidbits we got building on the relationships, but overall, yeah, it probably wasn't worth it. Real quick, 2 novel or comic book ideas you would love to see Star Wars take on.
Okay, the first one, and this comes from you, dude, because all the stuff you've been showing me on Starkiller is really cool. So I want to get a book fleshing out Starkiller. I want to know about this character. He seems like a badass. So I want to see his origin, how he learned about his powers, how he trained, how he got as strong as he is. So Starkiller is like number 1 on my list. I want a book about Starkiller.
Okay.
Which someone on TikTok commented on one of our things and said that Starkiller was in a book. Is that right?
You know, I think he might have been in a Legends. I don't think it was like written about him, but I think he was mentioned. But I don't remember it being like a huge huge part of the book, but I would have to look that up more. I feel like I would have heard of that.
Yeah, well, there's
so.
hundreds of Legends books, so it's impossible to read them all unless you started and very young and read them like every time you finished one, you picked up a brand new one.
Yeah. Oh, and okay, here you go. They just did a novel of The Force Unleashed. So the video game that Starkiller has, they wrote a novel, which just adapts the game. So that would have to do with Starkiller. That'd be worth checking out, honestly, because the cutscenes and the missions and everything and the story in Force Unleashed, it was interesting. It definitely had some badass stuff in it. So that might be interesting checking out.
Yeah. Huh. And so another one, and you're going to have to help me out with this because Darth Bane was not the first Sith, or was he?
No.
Okay, so there were Sith before Darth Bane, but I mean, who was the first Sith?
Rule of 2. He was the first one who invented the rule of 2, but the first Sith, I don't know. I don't know if there is like a noted first Sith, because I mean the order goes back.
Well, that's a really steep history to go into. But my other point is, I would love. What do you got?
The first Dark Lord of the Sith was somebody called this name is actually familiar. Ajunta Pall. Ajunta, and then Paul, Pall. First Sith Empire, founded the first Sith Empire, expanded on to other worlds. Sith took over the planet Zyos and created as their capital and Paul's new home. Yeah, Ajunta Pall. That name is very familiar. I've heard that. But yeah, okay, there you go. That's the first Sith.
Well, so my second novel would simply be like the very first Sith, the beginning of people using the Force and how it became this Sith versus Jedi situation. Like, it'd be super easy to pick up even if you've never seen Star Wars. Like, this is the beginning of the story of the Force and both sides of the Force. You know what I mean? Just to give us a foundation of the beginning of the whole conflict.
I love that. That would be super interesting. And like you said, like, write it as if it's the first introduction of the Force to anybody. I like that. That's a good idea. So, Sith and Jedi origins or something.
Right.
Origins of the Force.
And the Starkiller book would literally be titled Starkiller. It'd be just his whole story, you know. So those are my two novels. What do you got?
Okay. So as boring as it is, that was my novel, Starkiller as well. I probably should have seen that one coming because, we've been talking about that a ton, but I agree with everything you said. But I guess, I can't believe that a Force Unleashed novel has never really been mentioned to me before, like while talking about all this. So whoever that was on TikTok, thank you very much. Give us a follow. There would be a Starkiller novel. I think that'd be super good. I'd love to get his backstory fleshed out. You don't have to worry about him being too OP for being on screen. He's overpowered as hell, yes, but you could just write a loose Legends novel about Starkiller, and I'd be fully invested. But again, I'll go check out a Force Unleashed one.
Well, I wonder if that book is actually supposed to be good. You said it was recent, or is it old Legends stuff?
It has to be pretty old because
the
movie, the book, the game itself came out like 20 years ago.
Right. So I do want to read that, as long as it's not one of those books that kind of came out and sucked. Like, I haven't played the game. I've heard so many good things about the game, so I'd love to learn the story behind that. So I kind of want to read this book.
Yeah, 2008 is when it came out. Yeah, seems like it's got some good reviews. So maybe we should check that out. All right, so my second novel or comic idea that I want Star Wars to take on, I mentioned this before in other episodes. I want a What If Star Wars comic book series. I think there's so many cool and interesting alternate storylines in the Skywalker saga alone. Like, let alone all the Old Republic, all that stuff. I mean, I guess you already have Legends comics. That's kind of a what if-ish thing, but not exactly. But the Skywalker saga alone, you could have so many cool what if stories. You could have what if Anakin defeated Obi-Wan on Mustafar and kept his full potential on the dark side. You know, full-powered Anakin, full-powered Darth Vader with his body, with everything intact. How powerful would he be? George Lucas at one point said that he would be, I think he said 200% strength of Palpatine, or phrase it in some way like that. Like, he'd be twice as strong as Palpatine, Anakin's full potential. It's like
badass.
Yeah, it's like, I want to see that. If that's the case, I would like to see that. Yeah, George Lucas confirmed full potential Anakin Skywalker would have been 200% more powerful than Palpatine. I don't know how he did the math there, but I would love to see something like that. a what if series with that. I would love to see a what if Anakin didn't stop Mace Windu and he never turned, and we got Anakin staying on, the light side, and he talks with Obi-Wan and they figure that out, something like that. Or what if Darth Maul defeated Obi-Wan and went on to be the Vader for Palpatine? What if Darth Maul didn't die and he continued to be the apprentice for Palpatine? There's so many cool and interesting badass storylines that they could run down and just cover so much content with. And I just really hope they do it at some point.
Dude, you totally switched me. As soon as you said you wanted a what if Star Wars series, I was like, how, like, why? You have so much history to do any other character, thousands of years. You could do any kind of story. But then as soon as you explain those specific scenarios, that would be so interesting to read.
Yeah. I feel like it's a no-brainer. I don't know. I don't know why it hasn't been done yet, but especially Disney owns both of them. You already got what if going for Marvel. Let Star Wars have a turn.
Yeah. A book of Yoda being in the past, like a comic book of Yoda when he's like 200 years old, way back in the past. That would be really cool too.
Yeah, I'd be in for that. We don't have nearly enough Yoda stuff.
Yeah, he's so old.
Right. Just
so old. Just look at him. He's just so old.
He's too old. Yeah, that would be cool too. There's a lot of cool things they could do out there, man. I would love to see Prime Qui-Gon for a bit, I mean,
totally.
Again, and this is all Skywalker Saga stuff. There's so much more out there.
Yes, the Skywalker Saga is like just a little grain of sand in this beach of history,
Yeah, no, exactly, dude. It's a blip.
Yeah. Okay, well, that wraps it up for our episode here at Why So Sidious, a nerd podcast. Be sure to follow us at Why So Sidious Pod on Instagram, Facebook. What else are we on? Twitter, TikTok. So all the social media is at Why So Sidious Pod. Thank you for listening, and we'll see you next time.
Goodbye.